Have you ever had that feeling, that there's more to reality than what you can just see and hear and touch? Like there's this deeper dimension to the world, just beyond our normal perception. Well, what if I told you that you already had the equipment to perceive it? That you actually possess a set of secret senses designed for exactly that purpose? And look, this isn't just some nice, poetic idea. It's actually the core of a really profound and ancient tradition. The idea is that our five physical senses, they're just echoes, copies, really, of a far more powerful set of senses that we all have. Spiritual senses, designed to perceive a completely different kind of reality.
So this whole concept has a name. It's called the doctrine of the spiritual senses. And the idea is actually pretty simple, but it's totally revolutionary. Just like your physical senses grab onto the material world, your spiritual senses are designed to grab onto spiritual realities. It's kind of like a spiritual version of aesthetics, the ability to perceive the divine in a way that directly mirrors our physical senses.
Okay, so what exactly are they? We're not just talking about a vague metaphor for like intuition or a gut feeling. Nope. This is a highly developed theological idea with a super rich history that maps our ability to perceive the spiritual world directly onto the five senses we already know and use every single day. The tradition identifies five of them: spiritual sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. And each one corresponds to a really unique way of encountering and experiencing spiritual truth. So let's break them down one by one. First up, spiritual sight. Now, this isn't about seeing ghosts or anything like that. It's the ability to perceive realities that are, well, superior to physical things. It's about seeing the underlying beauty and splendor in creation, or as the ancient theologians put it, to see beings like cherubim or seraphim, which, in this tradition, are basically high-ranking angelic beings. Next, we've got spiritual hearing. This is the ability to pick up on sounds that aren't actually vibrating through the air. It's about hearing the word of God not with your ears, but with your soul itself, a totally different kind of listening. Then there's spiritual taste, which uses this really powerful metaphor of being nourished. It's the capacity to truly savor spiritual truth, to feed on it and be sustained by it, to taste the living bread that has come down from heaven. Spiritual smell. This one allows a person to discern spiritual presences, to perceive what the Apostle Paul once called the sweet savor of Christ. Think of it like an intuitive sense of holiness, or, the lack of it. And finally, spiritual touch. This is the most intimate one. It's the ability to have direct contact with, to actually handle the word of life. It's about experiencing the reality of the divine in a way that feels tangible, personal, and real. Now, this whole framework, it might sound kind of new agey or something, but it is incredibly old. And this is where the story gets really fascinating. It was first systematically developed by one of the most brilliant and, controversial thinkers of the early church, a guy named Origen of Alexandria. And he lived way, way back in the 3rd century. Right, so to get Origen, you have to get what his world was like. Today, a lot of scholars, they're on a quest to find the one single correct version of an ancient text. But Origen, he lived in a world where there were tons of different versions floating around. He actually put together this massive work called the Hexapla, which laid out 6 different versions of the Old Testament side by side. See, he wasn't trying to prove one was right and the others were wrong. He believed the deeper spiritual meaning was found in the conversation between all the different texts. And to perceive that, well, you needed more than just your physical eyes. But this brings up a huge question, right? If this incredible idea was figured out so clearly almost 1,800 years ago, why isn't it common knowledge? I mean, where did it go for almost 2 millennia? For a long, long time, it was kind of hidden away in mystical theology, but then it had a modern reawakening. And that brings us to the 20th century, and a Swiss theologian named Hans Urs von Balthasar. He's the one who recovered this ancient doctrine and gave it this radical, world-changing twist. He didn't just dust it off, he completely reimagined it for our modern world. And this right here shows the difference perfectly. For Origen, who was really influenced by Greek philosophy, it was sort of an inverse relationship. To open your spiritual eye, you had to close your physical one. You had to retreat from the world. But Balthasar's vision was the absolute opposite. He argued our ordinary physical senses don't need to be shut down. They need to be awakened. They themselves can be transformed to perceive God, not by escaping the world, but by encountering the divine right within it. So where does this actually happen? Balthasar was super clear about this. He pointed to 4 key arenas where the splendor of God could be perceived by our awakened senses: in the created world around us, in the community of the church, in the concrete signs of liturgy, like bread and wine, and, most radically of all, in our neighbor. And honestly, that last point, that changes everything. It takes this whole idea of spiritual senses out of the realm of some private mystical experience and puts it smack dab in the middle of our messy, everyday human relationships. Balthasar makes this absolutely astonishing claim. He says our spiritual senses aren't awakened when we're alone on a mountaintop. No, they're given to us definitively in the act of loving another person. It is in that real, tangible, face-to-face encounter with another human being that our ordinary senses become spiritual, and we start to perceive something divine. And that leaves us with a pretty profound question to chew on. If our everyday senses of sight and hearing and touch can be transformed into tools for perceiving the divine, then what beauty, what depth, what splendor are we failing to see right in front of us? In the world, sure, but more importantly, in each other.